Check 1 2, check 1 2. Test 1 2, testing. Test 1 2, test 1 2.
All right, so green's good? Okay. All right, we're going to call this meeting to order. If everybody's ready, let's rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Oh, yes. We'll do a brief moment of silence for the student that recently passed away at Athens School District. Thank you. Okay, we'll start off with the approval of the meeting minutes. If there is no discussion about this, we will approve these by unanimous consent. We have Tuesday, December 7th meeting, and we have Tuesday, January 11th work session meeting. No discussion? Okay. All right. Next on the agenda is superintendent items and reports. Mr. Stage.
Thank you, Mr. Chairznowski. Good evening, board members. Tonight, we would like to take a moment to recognize our outstanding Athens Area School District board members for their service. This is January is always School Director Month. So each of you have a certificate of appreciation. And I know several students and classes have been recognizing you and will continue to recognize you throughout the month of January. Thank you for what you do. It's been an incredible journey for a lot of work on your end, so thank you. I'll keep my report brief. In fact, I'm going to give the rest of my time to Mr. Mosier and Dr. Wales. We have several students here tonight that we'd love to recognize, so Mr. Mosier, thank you.
Big, hairy, audacious goal.
Big, hairy, audacious goal that they set. What's that? Me?
Okay. Introduce Dr. Wales, some of our Scholastic Art Award winners. They have a big, hairy, audacious goal they set. I think Dr. Wales is going to talk about that a little bit. So I'm going to turn this over to him.
So everything I needed to know about life, I learned in art class. You learn some things in art class that you'll use the rest of your life everywhere. You'll learn about problem solving. You'll learn about goal setting, persevering. So we talked in the art class about setting art making goals. So I challenged everybody to take a little 3x5 card. And this was for them. That was not for me. It wasn't to share, but just write a academic goal, an athletic goal, an art making goal. And I said, I'm going to do the same, but I'm going to ask you, what's your BHAG? What's your big, hairy, audacious goal? That's a goal that it could happen. Probably not real likely, but it could. So I said, this is mine. I want us to get more pieces accepted in the Scholastic Art Awards than any other school in the region. Well, we did it. We beat Horseheads. We beat everyone. So the first thing I want to say is we have an amazing group of students here. The ones who are here, the ones who couldn't make it, the ones who worked so hard, didn't get in, but still made beautiful artwork. The first thing everybody says is, oh, such talent. Well, it takes more than talent. It takes hard work. And these kids worked hard, worked extra. They'll listen to advice, take advice, consider advice. So I think that's one reason why they're there. We also have administration that supports the arts. I really appreciate it. Celebrates us, supports us, the school board that supports the art program. And we had a commitment as a school district to stay in school as much as we could. So that is one reason why too, that we kicked everybody's butts. So now I'm gonna take a look at the artwork. You guys up there have a PowerPoint, and the community can see it here. So we're going to start with Erin Rockwell, who is here. She's going to say a couple words here in a minute. But so a senior is allowed to submit a portfolio of 6 works around a single theme. And Erin's portfolio was called The Circus of Life. So the recognition, first of all, it is such a huge honor to even just get in the show. As out of 1,000 pieces in our region, they're only going to accept 100. So this is the best of the best of the best in our region, a big chunk of New York and Pennsylvania. So now if you get a gold key, that's the highest award you can get. These pieces will go on and compete at the national level. So Erin got a gold key for her whole portfolio. She got a gold key for her portfolio. She got a silver key for the painting without a net. I'm on slide number 2 at this point. And a couple honorable mentions. Now that means, like I said, an honorable mention is a big deal too. A gold key for this painting. So all these are like the circus is a metaphor for life. A gold key in painting and a silver key in drawing. So that's amazing achievement. She also got an honorable mention for this painting. I think it's on slide number 3, called Prom. So that's Erin's work. She got the most. Connor Brown, who is here tonight, his painting called High Noon. So this is his contemporary take on the Western Showdown. Now, Nina Beeman, who couldn't be here tonight, colored pencil drawing called Identity. Tegan Williams is the next one. She's doing a series on the 7 deadly sins, and that one is called Gluttony. Now, Emma, who is here, she, as you can tell, she loves origami and is looking for ways to incorporate origami in her mixed media pieces, photography. And so this is a gold key mixed media piece. There are 365 origami cranes. So in the legend of the origami crane, if you make 1,000 cranes, you get your wish. So that's 1 year's worth of wishing there. So that's quite a lot of intricate. I can't even make one of those things. So that's pretty impressive. And silver key in photography. Madeline Jones, who could not be here, honorable mention for this chocolate lab. One of the amazing things, rewarding things, is to see so many different kinds of artists, and each one pursues their goals. Now the next one is a political cartoon. So this he designed immediately after the last election. So he's got Donald Trump and Joe Biden there, election aftermath, that's called. It's the first time I've ever seen one of my students get a political cartoon. There's a special category for that. And the next one is Katie Gorman, who is here tonight. She did a silver key for her digital art here, and an honorable mention for a second digital piece. Nora, who is here, this next piece is called Circle of Fried. It's a tondo, is a round painting. It's got a round canvas, so it's a plate of donuts. And the next one is Michael G., who is here. He's our resident photographer. This is called The Broken Path, honorable mention in photography. Christine Doherty, this is a lino cut print. So you carve it, ink it, and make prints. And it's the Grim Reaper superimposed over the Daily Review paper, which has all the COVID headlines. So I thought it's a very thought-provoking piece. So now Halia Kosis, honorable mention in photography. Now, Mrs. Ellis could not be here tonight, but her classes also had many pieces recognized. She has some tremendous students this year, and I tell you what, I got to take my hat off to Mrs. Ellis for having to teach ceramics virtually and distant and still keeping it going. So clay deliveries or whatever it took. So Zachariah Earl's gold key for his ceramics piece there. Kaylee Grazel, honorable mention. This one is called Be Still My Beating Heart. It's a vase that's shaped like a human heart. It's a beautiful piece there by Shelby Morris. Madison Park, honorable mention, and Vegas Alfred, senior, so she had a portfolio of ceramics pieces all related to bees and honey. So beautiful pieces, tremendous work all the way around. We're just going to have Erin Rockwell say a few words about the art program. She's a president of our art club and a true leader among artists here.
Hi, I'm Erin, president of the art club, and I'd like to just congratulate everyone who submitted work into Scholastic's art competition because I know how much time and dedication it takes to accomplish that goal. And I won a gold key for my portfolio. In art club, we're working on some new projects together and encouraging more people to join and encouraging people to have a booth at Arts for All to share their artwork. So I just want to thank the school for supporting art, and thank you.
Thank you. Can we just have everybody stand up? Turn around and take a look at everybody, and everybody, if you could stand up and look at all the people. There you go. Everybody, thank you. And,
Dr. Wales,
yeah,
could you do us a favor?
yeah.
You mentioned all of them, and I thank you, but
Yeah.
could you help us, like, have them share their name so we know who you were talking about? Like, could you have them go down the line and give us their
Okay,
names?
yes, okay.
So we know.
Connor Brown, let's go ahead and stand up.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, he's the one that did the high noon. Erin Rockwell, stand up. She did a Circus of Life portfolio. Michael G., our photographer. And The Broken Path, he did. Katie Gorman, she did the digital pieces. Emma White, she's our origami expert. And Nora Lay, a painter of donuts. Yeah. But just again, thank you for your support. We really feel supported. And obviously, they're doing tremendous work. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Wales.
Thank you, Dr. Wells. I just want to say it's an incredible honor to be able to recognize the outstanding talent that we have within our classrooms. And thank you, Dr. Wales, for bringing these students, sharing your craft, your passion with them, and to watch them and see what they have accomplished is truly remarkable. And it makes me so proud that these are Wildcats and how well they represent us out in the real world. So thank you for that.
I just wanted to say also, this is amazing work. I grew up, my sister's an art teacher at another school, and I grew up with her literally painting on her bedroom walls and her ceiling. And myself, I could draw stick figures and that was it. And so watching her transform just things out of nothing into beauty, and that was her channeling her energy. And everybody has their own special gifts, and everybody thinks it has to be academics or sports, and the arts are very strong for me. And I just commend all of your hard work and your dedication and just your talent. It's a gift, and enjoy it, do it, be you, and keep doing what you're doing. Thank you.
Anything other to report, Mr. Stage?
Mr. Chair Snowski, that concludes my report. Thank you.
Okay, we'll move on to the solicitor's report. Mr. Barrett? Microphone, please.
Last meeting, we added to section 13A, a tax exemption request resolution for the spade neuter clinic. You can consider that when it comes up in the agenda, but I have drafted that resolution and I wanted to go over it I will paraphrase it. The Spade Neuter Save Network is a Pennsylvania corporation that has a 501c3 designation from the Internal Revenue Service. It has also received a lease from tenants in Ulster Township, which is free. They don't pay for it. If the tenants owned the property, that's the corporation, they would qualify for a real estate tax exempt status as a 501c3 and a charitable, because of their charitable nonprofit work. Bradford County's granted them, the commissioners have granted them tax exempt status, and so has Ulster Township, and they've applied to the school district for the same consideration. The resolution would say that the Spade Neuter Save Network Incorporated is granted a real estate tax exemption for this property, and I put the assessment number there. This exemption is conditioned upon the property providing, the corporation providing annual verification that the lease is in effect and is currently being utilized. Upon termination of the lease agreement between the landlord, the property shall immediately be reassessed back on the tax rolls, and they have to provide status to us annually. And this would be a resolution of the board. I would suggest you take it up during that section if it is your pleasure. It's certainly within your power to grant it. That concludes my report, Mr. President.
Okay. Thank you. Any questions about that? Okay. All right. We are up to visitor comments. If you could please give your name, address, organization, which you represent, and a subject matter. It is requested that comments be kept to 3 minutes. Comments relative to private student or employee matters should be directed to the superintendent outside the meeting. We're gonna have a little bit of a change today though. When we get to about 1 minute left, I'll be putting my finger up that you have 1 minute left, so the people speaking know they have a little bit of time left, so they're not rushed and I don't interrupt them at the end, so they understand how much time is left. So do we have any visitor comments on board action items only? Okay. All right, we'll move on then. Financial business. Do I have a motion to bring up the financial business then?
I make a motion.
Do we have a second?
Kevin Root, second.
Okay. Any discussion on this? This is the listing of the bills, the general fund checks, cafeteria bills, income tax report, secretary treasurer report, and student activity report at Harlan Road Middle School. Any discussion? Okay, Christine, when you're ready.
Mr. Owen,
Yes.
Mr. Rude. Mrs. Braun,
Yes.
Mr. Cheresnowski,
Yes.
Mrs. Cooper, Mr. Frisbee, Mr. Jones,
Yes.
Mrs. Minnick.
Yes.
Okay, up next is the personnel items. Do I have a motion and a second for this?
Make a move.
I'll second.
Any discussion on this? This is personnel. We have some retirements, some temporary 90/90 contracts, some support contracts. We have updated job description, ESL instructor memo to increase hours, and we have an MOU with our AAESPA supplemental wage increase. If you'll notice, Ms. Shores gave us an updated MOU. The one on board docs is not correct. The one that is in your hand is the correct one. The difference is bullet point number 4 and the last bullet, the expiration of that. So that's the difference between that and what's on your board docs. Am I correct with that, Ms. Shores? Okay. Any discussion on these matters? Okay, Christine.
Mr. Rude.
Yeah.
Mrs. Braun,
Yes.
Mr. Cheresnowski,
Yes.
Mrs. Cooper,
Yes.
Mr. Frisbee, Mr. Jones,
Yes.
Mrs. Minnick,
Yes.
and Mr. Owen.
Yes.
Okay. Next up is number 8, contracts and agreements. Do I have a motion and a second?
Cooper, move. Lisa Braun, second.
Okay, this is our revised NTC social service agreement and our request for authorization for administration, all necessary actions for the community eligibility program for Athens High School, Rowe, Lynch, and SRU. And it's in effect all the way to the year 2025, I believe. Any discussion on that?
If you don't mind.
Yes, go ahead.
I just, for some of those board members that may be new and are unfamiliar with the request for the CEP program, the Community Eligibility Program allows us to provide free breakfast and lunch for all students. We are participants in the CEP program, but only the elementary schools, SRU and Lynch, were eligible when we first applied. We are now eligible for all 4 of our buildings. So this would add Harlan Row Middle School and the Athens area high school. We need direction on this tonight to vote on it. It'll be part of our RFP process for food service contracts. And I will entertain any questions anyone has about that.
Does anybody have any questions? Oops. Okay, if there's no questions or comments, Christine?
Mrs. Braun,
Yes.
Mr. Charles-Nelski,
Yes.
Mrs. Cooper,
Yes.
Mr. Frisbee, Mr. Jones,
Yes.
Mrs. Minnick,
Yes.
Mr. Owen,
Yes.
and Mr. Rude.
Yes.
Next up is policies. Do I have a motion and a second?
Lisa Braun, make a motion.
Second.
Okay, this one is our first read for the graduation requirements. This was done at the work session. Committees went over it. Any questions or comments? Okay, Christine?
Mr. Charles-Nelski,
Yes.
Mrs. Cooper,
Yes.
Mr. Frisbee, Mr. Jones,
Yes.
Mrs. Minnick,
Yes.
Mr. Owen,
Yes.
Mr. Rude,
Yes.
and Mrs. Braun.
Yes.
Okay, number 10, we have curriculum and instruction. Do I have a motion and a second to bring this to the table?
I make a motion to bring it to the table.
I'll second.
So this one, curriculum instruction, includes the 2022-23 school calendar, the class of 2022 senior trip, 2023 senior trip, 2024 senior trip, and the history club trip request of 2023. Any discussion on these items? Okay.
I just want to thank the student advisor or the advisors of these senior classes for getting this in early and letting the kids work towards this goal of going on the trip.
Thank you, Mrs. Minnick. I think that's one of the plan was to get it out early enough to encourage more participation and offer opportunities for them to fundraise for it. So thank you for recognizing that. Appreciate that.
Thank you. Christine, when you're ready.
Mrs. Cooper,
Yes.
Mr. Frisbee, Mr. Jones,
Yes.
Mrs. Minnick,
Yes.
Mr. Owen,
Yes.
Mr. Rude,
Yes.
Mrs. Braun,
Yes.
and Mr. Charles-Nelski.
Yes. Okay, number 11 is transportation items. Do I have a motion and a second to bring this?
Kevin Root, so moved.
I second.
Okay, this is the additions of the 2021-22 driver list. Is there any discussion or comments about this? Okay, Christine?
Mr. Frisbee? Mr. Jones?
Yes.
Mrs. Minnick?
Yes.
Mr. Owen?
Yes.
Mr. Rude?
Yes.
Mrs. Braun?
Yes.
Mr. Charles-Nelski?
Yes.
And Mrs. Cooper?
Yes.
Okay, building and grounds items. I need a motion and a second to bring these to the table for discussion.
Mrs. Cooper moves.
Second.
Thank you. This is our lighting project RFP. and our Sunday facility use request for February of 2022. Any discussion or questions?
Yeah, for the lighting project RFP, could we get a reminder on the purpose, the reason that we're doing the project?
You're looking at the reason. It's to update an outdated lighting system in both our LGI and our auditorium. We can't service it. The parts are unavailable. And as things start to go and die, we are finding less and less opportunities to repair it. So the whole expectation is to update those so that they, we can still have proper lighting in here. We do hold classes, study halls, and it was part of our plan to offer more space and distancing. So it is money that is earmarked in the ESSER plan.
So this would cover both here at the high school as well as Harlan Row?
Yes, correct, both places.
And
Very minimal that we know of, and we're working with engineers to find a asbestos abatement company right now.
What's the proposed time frame for the project?
Yeah, so it'll, if approved, we hope to get started as soon as possible, but not interrupting the learning environment. So it may be a June or possibly May, and they're going to work around our schedule, but it's all about getting the equipment in. Am I right, Jeff? And so as soon as we get the equipment in, they'll begin that part of it, the installation part, I should say.
so if-
We actually have a job meeting scheduled for Monday with the architect and a company that's going to be finding asbestos contractors that will help solve this.
So let's remember that graduation, you said about June, starting in June.
Yeah, it won't impact. We'll make sure that there's no overlap or impact on graduation.
Just in case it has to be
Yeah, I
held
appreciate.
inside.
Yeah, and honestly, with working with Hunt, they're very good about respecting big events and making sure that they work around us. So, one additional thing, if we can move on to the Sunday facility use.
Go ahead.
I had 2 requests came in within the last 48 hours. One by Boy Scouts for a Pinewood Derby, and the other is Mr. Young for a football banquet. We can't walk those items on, so I'm just going to let you know they will be on the March agenda, and you'll have to retroactively approve them. Yeah, in March, yeah, or yeah, February, correct. Sorry, yeah.
Trying.
Yeah, the months are starting to blend together,
Yes,
folks.
they are.
Sorry about that, yeah. So I just wanted to bring that to everyone's attention. You should be able to approve the one in March, just we couldn't get it on tonight.
Yes.
We literally got it today.
Okay. Any other discussion on these items? Okay, Christine.
Mr. Jones? Mrs. Minnick?
Yes.
Mr. Owen?
Yes.
Mr. Rude?
Yes.
Mrs. Braun?
Yes.
Mr. Chersnowski?
Yes.
Mrs. Cooper?
Yes.
Mr. Frisbee?
Okay, number 13, we have other. Do I have a second and a motion to bring these up for discussion?
Make a move.
Lisa Brown, second.
This will be the tax exemption request resolution that Mr. Barrett talked about with the spay neuter clinic, the revised 2022 school board meeting dates. We talked about that last meeting about how we had to move those a little bit because of billing. We needed to make sure we could pay the bills. Letter C is the revised school district health and safety plan for January 2022. Any discussion on any of these items?
For the tax exempt request, Mr. Barrett, I assume there are precedents of other similar organizations that have tax exempt status. Is that correct?
Yes, there's a lot of them that would qualify as long as you're a nonprofit. There are 2 types of organizations, a 501c3 and a 501c4. The C3 is their contributions are tax deductible on your income tax if you give them money. They have to be set up for a charitable purpose, and they did their presentation, and it's a pretty significant gift these people are giving them to let them use it. And we'll see how long it goes. What they're thinking about doing is, if it takes off and moves, I think they may give it to them permanently is what the intent is, but we don't know that, okay? That's not part of the deal anyway, okay?
Any other discussion on any of these items? Obviously, it is the health and safety plan. Are we okay with the way it is currently written? Do we want to make changes to it? Is there any discussion on the health and safety plan?
I'd like to amend the home
Household contact.
quarantine that is higher than in-school tracing quarantine at this time.
So letter E, under letter E?
Correct?
Okay. So more specific, like
Household contact.
the household contacts one is the one you're talking about, right? Okay. It goes to the second page. Okay.
Correct.
So how would you like to word that then, is what you said lessen it?
Absolutely. I don't understand. I mean, I understand what it says.
Mr. President, for clarity, I would suggest we would pull C and vote on the first two and then
Okay, you want to
take C by
Okay,
itself.
we can do that. Is there anybody?
That's fine.
Okay. All right, so let's go, we'll pull letter A and B and we'll vote on those together and then we'll discuss on letter C a little bit more. Okay, thank you, Pat. Okay, Christine, go ahead for letter A, just so we're clear, letter A and B.
Mrs. Minnick? Yes. Mr. Owen?
Yes.
Mr. Rude?
Yes.
Mrs. Braun?
Yes.
Mr. Charles-Nasky?
Yes.
Mrs. Cooper?
Yes.
Mr. Frisbee? And Mr. Jones?
Yes.
Okay, so now we're back to letter C. All right, so under household close contacts, student staff who are living in a household with COVID-19 positive individual and cannot isolate from that individual will be required to quarantine. Is that what you're saying, Cindy, right there? Should lessen the days from 10?
Yes, if we're doing quarantine for a positive case with symptoms at 5, then I believe the house should be the same if we are doing that.
Okay, so make it 5 days. Okay. Is everybody okay with that? Yep. It's page
It's right
7.
here.
Chuck.
It's
Okay.
right here. Kathy Jo, it's
What
page
page?
6. It's the last bullet on page 6. It moves over to page 7.
Hate to be
It's basically making
difficult,
that
but that
bullet
would take a
equivalent to
motion to amend
bullet,
the first motion.
4. Right.
Correct.
What page?
Correct.
What page?
I just have to say that I move to amend that, I believe.
Oh, okay.
Correct?
Yeah, well, I was just clarifying that the update that Cindy's recommending is very similar to what's currently stated in bullet 4, right, which says that any COVID-19 positive student or staff will be excluded for 5 days and then can come back after 5 days. That's the recommendation for the household close contact that Cindy's making, because the current verbiage for that one says that a 10-day quarantine is required. What Cindy's recommending is we make that a 5-day quarantine with a return after 5 days.
Are you saying you want the 5 days as well, required mask wearing then for day 6 or 10 as well? Because that's the same as the positive. That's why I just want to make sure it's written correctly. Is that what you're saying, Cindy, or?
I was saying that it coincides with what we're doing for positive cases.
Okay, so it'd be the same, okay. So it'd be the 5 days with days 6 through 10 required to wear a mask. Okay.
And we did get a second for the amendment, right? You seconded it?
I second. I've got some additional commentary I'd like to provide. I will second that for now.
And then,
but I would like to
then
provide
what
some
we'll have to do is vote on the amendment first, and then we would vote on the
I know, but
motion.
it's in there differently, 2 different spots.
All right,
All right.
so
I
I'm confused.
really can't talk well, and I'm sorry.
So,
Chris?
Sorry.
oh, sorry, Chris. I
He only has a
didn't
couple
hear you.
places.
Are we talking, I'm sorry, are we talking about the last page?
No. Chris, look at page, bottom of page 6,
Yes,
and yeah, and that would then necessarily
okay,
change the page 12.
thank you. Okay, that's,
The chart, the flow chart.
Yeah, that would, I would have to change,
page
the
6
graphic.
changes,
This
yes,
one, please.
okay.
which I can do.
So a lot of us are new with this, Pat, so I just want to make sure. So we're voting on an amendment to amend the health and safety plan that was presented prior to this. Okay. Are we done amending it though? That's my question.
Why,
Okay. Understood. Just that change that you just made, that we just made. Okay. Perfect. Okay.
I have a question on another one then. You want to do this one first?
Okay. Christine, do you understand? Do you get that?
That was the amendment of letter E.
Letter E, it's bullet 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, bullet 8.
Bullet 8, household close contacts.
Mr. Owen,
Yes.
Mr. Rude,
Yes.
Mrs. Braun,
Yes. Yes.
Mr. Cheresnowski.
Yes.
Mrs. Cooper,
Yes.
Mr. Frisbee. Mr. Jones,
Yes.
and Mrs. Minnick.
Yes.
Okay. Who would like to go next? I know we have a bunch of people that would like to talk.
So we're changing that one to 5 days.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Positive individual and cannot isolate from that individual will be required to quarantine for 5 days.
Mhm.
So what about the asymptomatic? Why are we keeping them for 10 days?
That they can come to school for 10 days.
Okay.
Asymptomatics can return to school for 10 days, but they are considered a close contact for days 1 through 10. Even though, as long as they remain asymptomatic, they can continue to come to school.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And Craig, if they can isolate, they can still go to school.
Correct. I believe that's, yeah.
If they're a household close contact and can isolate from the person who's COVID positive in their
Yes.
household,
Yes.
they can still go to school.
So if you're in a household and you can isolate, then we treat you as a normal close contact. And therefore, if you're asymptomatic, you would continue coming to school.
And wear a mask.
Yes. The way it's written now, yes.
Thank you.
No, I was just clarifying. I
think
don't
she
want to
was
make a
seeking
change.
some
I think this
clarification.
meets kind of everyone in the middle. I mean, keeping the kids in school and, meeting in the middle.
Any other comment? I know Michael, I thought he said he had a comment.
Yeah, just some comments and then another suggested update. I'll say I'm not a huge fan of the proposed plan. I think there's more that we could do. I'm also a believer of progress over perfection, so I'm okay with incremental updates, but I do think this is something we need to keep in front of this board in the future and continue to evolve the plan. Again, with the goal of keeping our kids in school, but also I think alleviating the burden on our teachers and our administrators so they can teach and administer and not be mask and quarantine police all the time. So I think this is a step in the right direction. I don't think it's where we need to be. I personally would like to think that we could make all masking requirements that are currently listed as recommendations. So that's a recommendation I'll propose is for the bullets that say masks required for the return, I would like to consider we reword that to be recommended. And I believe there are about 4 or 5 bullets in the plan where it says that.
Mr. Owen, so wherever it asks for required, you're saying change that to recommended?
Yes, yes.
That's your request for amendment?
That's my request, yes, for
Okay.
amendment.
I'm just writing it down
Yep.
so I make sure.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
Okay.
That another?
So we would need a motion and a second then for that. Unless there's more discussion about that.
Voting on the motion as amended now. Yes, right.
That he's proposing.
And his proposal is that positive, then come back in 5 days, and then it's optional for them to wear masks for the additional 5 days?
He's saying the word recommended.
Right, what we recommend, just like the verbiage we have in section 3A, where we recommend, but we don't require. I'm suggesting that same wording to be used throughout section 3E.
I'm getting so confused. Who's recommending and who's CDC and Department of Health? And I don't know, my daughter just had COVID and she came back at 5 days, but she had to wear, she could not come back unless she had a mask for the additional 5 days total. That's the CDC. And so what we're saying is recommending, we're not making them come back early? Or if they come back early, so say it's 5 days, there's asymptomatic, if they're still symptomatic, they can't come back, correct? But if they're asymptomatic 5 days and they know they have a mom, dad's positive, then when they come back in 5 days, still asymptomatic, do we still, so then they're saying you want to recommend that they wear a mask, but it's not mandated?
Yeah, if they're asymptomatic after the 5 days recommendation, to the point too, I think you made that if
And
they still
that's-
have a in-house close contact, right, that would then fall under the other bullet, right, that.
And where is, and it's just,
It's
Lisa, your mic
mandatory.
keeps
right now
Turn it
it's
down.
mandatory?
Yes,
So the,
should stay that way.
That it should stay mandatory, so I will vote that it will be, if we vote on this then? Okay,
We have to
Well,
move for it.
You have to make
Have
a
we moved
motion.
yet?
Nobody's made a motion. He's making the
Okay.
recommendation.
gotcha.
I don't know what
Made.
he's doing.
Is that his motion? Like,
So it's,
that your
we've had a motion and
motion.
we've had a second.
Who's made the motion?
I made the motion.
Michael did. I believe Cindy
It
did.
was brought to the table, it was moved, okay, so.
So just need a second.
I think Cindy did.
Okay, Mr. Rude?
Well, wait a
on,
second.
time
Now
out
we can
here.
discuss. There's a motion
So
and a
you're
second.
saying that if my son's out with COVID and after 5 days he's asymptomatic, you want it to be recommended only about the mask and not mandatory?
Correct.
Okay.
So let's also keep in mind that this is not forever. We can revisit this. If our numbers, we see our numbers going down or coming back up, we can revisit this. Right now, trying to protect everyone so that the kids can stay in school is my main goal anyway.
I think it's great we're getting it down to 5 days, which I think is awesome, but I also think we need to not just go from 0 to 100 and be like, yep. Don't be, let's just, I'm all for getting to some normalcy, but I'm also for, let's get back in 5 days, but there's still that 5 day that I think we should protect. Maybe not yourself, and I understand masks stink, but it's 5 days. Let's be a little bit more proactive and let's just do our part until things start to simmer down just a little bit. But that's my part of it.
I'd rather err on the side of safety than end up
Absolutely.
closing the school.
So you were starting with Mr. Rude? Is that what you were starting with, Christine? To vote?
We're ready.
Okay.
Yes, Mr. Rude.
No.
Mrs. Braun.
No.
Mr. Teresnowski.
No.
Mrs. Cooper.
Yes.
Mr. Frisbee.
No.
Mr. Jones.
No.
Mrs. Minnick.
No.
And Mr. Owen.
Yes.
Okay. Oop. Was there anything else, Michael?
Just one point of clarification. This with regards to 3E as well as 3H. For students that currently have a medical exemption for masks, how will that be treated, Mr. Stage, in this situation? Because there is some verbiage that says students who are unable or unwilling to wear a mask, they have to stay home for the 10 days. How will we handle that for students with exemptions?
So I have asked to, what we have done, we've been pretty consistent and we've excluded all kids who are unable or unwilling at this time. And we've done that since the beginning of the school year. We do think that with some legal guidance that there's some flexibility on that and some potential issues with 504s and anything with an actual medical need, or as Mr. Cummings said, IEPs. Is that correct, Mr. Cummings? That we should honor those medical exemptions. We can do that administratively, or you guys can do that, take that action as a board, whichever.
I'm personally fine if we handle it administratively. I think it's. unless
Mr.
anyone else
Barrett,
thinks
Mr.
otherwise.
Barrett
Case by case basis.
had included that. We've had conversations about that today. We can kind of do what we need to. We've got a special ed attorney that works with us with Sweet Stevens said there's probably a liability of excluding those students. So that conversation could be for all of us at this point.
No,
Mr. Barrett said it's whatever we choose or decide we might want to do.
Yeah, as long as we've got the consistent implementation.
Yeah, we've been
Is that
very
administrative
consistent
rule?
about the exclusionary part of it throughout the year, so.
I'm good. Thank you, Mr. Chosnowski.
Thank you. So just to make sure we're clear, so do we have to, so we voted on those particular, Mr. Barrett, do we have to vote on the rest of the entire plan then as well, or does that take care of that?
We voted on,
The
the
amendments
first, we
themselves
voted
are
on the First Amendment, which as I recall passed. We voted on the second one, which was defeated. And now you have to go back and vote on it as amended by the First
As
Amendment.
amended, okay. Thank you. We already had a motion for that, or do we have to make a motion for the amendment?
You didn't, I just,
The motion was made when you brought all three of them to the table.
Understood. Thank you.
Just call it for a vote if
Okay,
we're
thank
through
you.
discussing.
What about the flow
Okay.
charts? I mean,
Yes, Mr. Johnson.
what about the flow charts in the back? Because they then are not consistent, I don't think, with what we
Mr.
amended.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to redo those.
Okay.
And I will do them this evening and make sure they get out. to-
So, but they're not part of the plan, though.
They're not part of the plan. They were actually a graphic for everybody to follow, but they need updated. I know, I need a couple typos in there.
Well, the only reason why I say that is because the plan
Yeah.
talks about
So,
page 12. So
Right.
it's 8 of 12,
I-
7 of 12.
yeah, when I copy the document to make one document to share with everyone, it somehow just tagged page numbers into that as well. So you could remove the flow chart, because the flow chart is just for graphical
So
representation.
when we approve, we're approving through page 9, basically.
Yeah, to page 9, not
Understood.
the last two. The flow charts are not part of the plan. They were to be a graphical representation of the plan.
To help with,
Sorry, after I looked, you brought that up, I looked at it and I saw it was page numbered and I'm like, oh, it must have been.
Okay.
Yep, no problem. Just want to make certain.
Yeah, yeah,
Yep, good
and it
point.
needs to be updated. Did we address, like,
Be-
should our plan say mask exemptions will be honored? I mean, is that something we should make sure that we should put in there?
I think,
And it would come under letter H. Am I right?
appropriate accommodations for
says right
disabilities,
there,
respect to health.
Yeah, so just say that
I
we
will move for that, that it says that exemptions will be honored.
Okay. Per 504 on IEPs. So we might have to add that,
is that what you think, Mr.
per
Cummings?
504 and per IEP. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, there you go.
Do I have a motion and a second to,
So
For that
I will
amendment?
move to have accommodations for students with disabilities in respect to health and safety per their 504s and IEPs.
that is letter H.
Letter H.
I'll second
Second.
that.
That was me.
I'm sorry if somebody had a question. Sorry, Chris.
Sorry, Chris.
Squeaky over here, second.
We have to
So
vote
this
on
is
that.
another amendment.
Yep, this is another amendment for letter H, yes.
Are we ready? Mrs. Braun,
You've inherited this.
Yes.
Because your thing's flaking.
Mr. Charles-Nowski.
Yes.
Mrs. Cooper,
Yes.
Mr. Frisbee, Mr. Jones,
Yes.
Mrs. Minnick,
Yes.
Mr. Owen,
Yes.
and Mr. Rude.
Yes.
Okay, so now we're going to vote on the plan itself.
Almost.
Oh, okay.
I just have one, I know that we spoke about this in our last meeting as well. One of my biggest concerns, I have reached out since our last meeting to administration. And one of my biggest concerns is that not by any fault of any decisions we have made or could have done anything until today to change, our administration has been an extension of the Pennsylvania Department of Health for 2 years. And they haven't been able to work on school and other things. So with the contact tracing, and I don't believe it's done anything to help us. But I would like to put either, if we have to make a motion for it to be on an agenda or whatever, for us to discuss it after collecting data for a month to see if it reflects the same thing it's reflected that the administration has shared with me over the last 2 years. They have showed that contact tracing from school has not brought apart positive cases. It's been at home where the kids, if the mom has it, 2 days later, a kid will have it.
Okay.
Children that were contact traced as close contacts in school who were sent home did not come back positive. So if we could have them collect it over the next month to see if that still is happening, then I think it would be very important that we make another decision.
Is that something we can do?
Is that
Mr. Steve?
fair to, I don't know where that goes, and I'm
I-
sorry.
I would suggest that you would make that as a separate motion after we conclude this.
As a motion, I just didn't know if I had to say that right now.
Is that something that could just be
That's all.
done?
That's all.
It doesn't have to be a motion, Pat, or?
Yes, we vote on the plan and then she make that as a separate motion and instruct the administration
I
to
agree.
gather that data for her.
I make a motion to approve the plan.
Do I have a second to approve the plan?
Second.
Okay. All right, go ahead, Christine.
Okay, Mr. Charles-Nowski.
Yes.
Mrs. Cooper,
No.
Mr. Frisbee. Mr. Jones,
Yes.
Mrs. Minnick. Yes. Mr. Owen,
Yes, with the understanding that we're going to be revisiting in the near future.
Mr. Rude,
Yes.
and Mrs. Braun.
Yes.
Okay, now, what Cindy was saying, go ahead. I guess it's just.
Know what
she's
I'm
just
supposed
asking-
to
are
say.
you
I'm
just
sorry.
asking
I was just
administration-
asking if we could
Yeah, I think that's
have
something-
them keep tallies and get the
Yeah.
data to us so that we
I
have the
think
Aren't
that's-
we
data.
always going to do that? Aren't we always going to revisit this? Aren't
Yeah.
we always going to
Yeah,
view
we-
what's
we
going
have a-
on? I mean, is
So,
that
I'm
really
sorry.
necessary?
Trying to set parameters
So
of
that
what
way-
we're looking for.
Yeah,
Well,
so
but
we can
what's
look at it.
1 month, 2 months? I mean, we're always going to do that. I just like,
I understand what you're saying,
Mrs.
though.
Cooper, I will tell you, we do keep a pretty, I would say, robust document that will help track that data. And we can collate that and share that at any time.
The next, okay,
Yeah, and we will continue to do that.
correct.
And neither do we. So we do our best. We
Okay.
still have to collect data, so absolutely we can. Yes, ma'am. Yep, easily done.
All right. I want to thank you all for the discussion. I think that was really, really well done discussion. We all worked through it, so thank you very much.
yeah, and I would point out, we have had people that have gotten positive. If you take our Christmas or winter ball, there's probably been how many from that event in students together, like school, that have gotten positive. So there's some data right there as well, Cindy. Thank you.
Okay. We are up to the next visitor comments. Again, same, please give your name, address, organization which you represent, and subject matter. It's requested that comments be kept to 3 minutes. Comments relative to private student or employee matters should be directed to the superintendent outside the meeting. I will give the 1 minute when it's 1 minute left. Are there any visitor comments at this time?
Just a quick comment on the interaction here, just the last few minutes. In terms of how often we're going to revisit this, my suggestion would be until we're back to normal. What we're doing here with the restrictions on our students are causing lasting damage. If you, as a board, are not willing to take that up at every single opportunity to return back to normal, I would argue that you're in the wrong job. In terms of the data, I understand there's some anecdotal data there. I get that. There's cases where we can say somebody went here and they contracted COVID. That's anecdotal data. That's different than data analytics. What we need here is data we can analyze over a long term at volume. That's going to determine what's actually happening to be able to forensically prove that this is finally over. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other visitor comments?
I'm sorry, who was that?
Oh, I'm sorry. Matt Cooper, I live in East Africa.
Oh, okay.
Thank you. Is the mic on, ma'am?
Test.
Yep, okay.
Deb Huber, Athens, Pennsylvania. In agreement with Mr. Cooper, we have to look at what's happening. CDC, FDA, very corrupted. Data coming out of there has also been very corrupted. I followed the rally in DC, and I also listened to the 5-hour Senate hearing on the COVID committee with Ron Johnson. We are at a precipice right now. We have to take care of our children. When you have 2 cardiologists and a virologist who say, do not vaccinate 5 to 11-year-olds, there is no data. Yet it is happening. It's happening in our community. I've been on the phone with the people that I used to write prescriptions with. They refer me to Pfizer. There is such corruption right now in our community, or in our, in our government. We have to look at what is happening. I have, I only have, I think 7, but there is evidence of all of this being patented before it happened. And I would like you to take a look at it. I've already sent it to our AG. We crashed the OAG website because we have to stop this now. We cannot continue to inject children without data. We have simple concerns in our community about having the data to keep our kids at home or to allow them back in school. Look at the federal level. It's pretty scary. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Good evening.
Can I just say one more thing, please? Thank you all very much. This is a really rough road. I have been to at least 4 school board meetings. I've been to 4 churches in the Clark Summit, Abington Heights area. We, as a community, are doing a great job. We really are. Those people are in deep trouble. I'm also off of the phone with my friends and family in Canada. They're in deep trouble. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Amanda Champion, Athens Township. First of all, I would just like to say thank you so much for the cooperation that you're showing us as parents now. I've really noticed a difference. There's a different vibe, and it's nice to know that we have people here that are our voices. I'm not sure if you're aware, but the Pennsylvania Music Educators Association just released that they're requiring vaccinations for students that are going to be attending the All-State Festival. And I'm wondering what your position is as a school district, and are you voicing your concerns about that? And will that reject any of our Athens students from attending that?
Mrs. Champion, this is actually the very first I've heard of that. We don't require vaccinations here. I will contact PMEA and let them know.
We did contact them today and we confirmed that with them.
Okay.
So that's why I'm bringing that to the board today, so you can confirm that with
Okay.
them and voice your concern on that.
When is that?
I don't know when that,
I think it usually happens, now I don't know the date, either the end of February or early March is usually when that happens.
okay. And as for the comment about the winter ball being a transmission, I can tell you from my daughter's firsthand experience, those transmissions happened before and after. In my respective opinion, it wasn't the winter ball itself. So most of these cases that are happening is in close contact when our children are getting together in their homes. And these school contacts, I would greatly appreciate that we can continue to monitor that and see if there's actual transmission happening within our classrooms. Thank you so much again.
Thank you. Okay. We just have some board communications then. We have the updated calendar because of the snow day that we had on January 18th. Any board discussion items? I just wanted to thank the new sound system in the gymnasium. I don't know if anybody's heard that. It sounds phenomenal. Much, much better.
Thank you.
I want to thank everybody who put that in. It sounds great. It was worth the wait. We do have future meetings. Work session February 8th on Tuesday at the admin office at 7. I do believe it's not on here, but there are also committees as well that day, Mr. Tage, correct? And our regular session on Tuesday, February 15th will be a voting meeting at Harlan Row LGI.
So I just want to address Mrs. Champion. The conference or the festival is April 6th through the 9th at Kalahari Resort.
I'll be contacting them. At least they'll hear from me as well as a district.
Okay, thank you. Is there a need? I don't know of a need of an executive session. Okay. If there's nothing else, we will adjourn. Thank you.